So let's practice another one. So you'll notice this problem is 7 2/9 minus 3 3/4. Now, we do not have a common denominator, so that's the first thing we're going to need to do. We may have to ungroup before we can subtract our whole numbers and our fractions. So let's get started. So I do notice I have a denominator of 5 and 9, and I'm going to create a table to help me find out what is my least common multiple. So I can use that for my least common denominator. So to do this, I'm just going to count by nines to start with. So we've got 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, and we'll go to 54. Next, I'm going to count by fives to get to 9. So let's go ahead and do that. We've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Now I'm not even close to being here, so I'm going to just keep adding on 35, 40, and 45. All right, so I can see my least common multiple is 45, so I'm going to use that for my denominator. So let's make this equal to 45. And we'll make this one equal to 45. All right, so now let's continue on. We've got 9 times 5 is 45. So what I do to the denominator, I'm going to do to the numerator. So we've got 2 times 5 is going to be 10. So I'm going to make that 10 45ths. And then down here, I know that 9 times 5 is 45. So my factor is going to be 9. And then 4 times 9. So usually you're not going to have the same numbers here as you do here when you have an uncommon denominator. In fact, that will never happen. So we're going to go ahead and say 4 times 9 is 36. Now, you may notice that we have a 10 here and a 36. Now, we can't take 10 minus 36, so I am going to have to ungroup my 7 in order to finish this problem. So we're going to ungroup this. This is going to be a 6, and I still have my 1 there. But I'm going to need to make it into a fraction that has a denominator of 45, but that's equal to 1. So I do know that 1 is the same thing as 45 out of 45. So even though these numbers are a lot larger, because I have the same denominator and same numerator, it's still going to be equal to 1, so I can use that. So we're going to add that here, 45 out of 45, to our 10 and 45ths. All right, so let's go ahead and add that up. We've got 10 plus 45 is going to be 55. We're going to keep the denominator of 45. And I'm going to keep 36 out of 45 as well. I'll bring over my whole numbers. So I've got 6 and I've got 3. Now I'm ready to subtract. Now I'm going to have to do a little bit of borrowing on this because 6 cannot be subtracted from 5. So I'm going to change this 50 to a 40. I'm going to bring over my group of 10 here. So instead of 5, I now have 15. All right, so now we're ready to actually subtract. We've got 15 minus 6 is going to be 9. 4 minus 3 is going to be 1. We'll keep our denominator of 45, and we'll say 6 minus 3 is 3. All right, so if you're feeling pretty good about this, you can go ahead and stop the video here. But if you are wanting a little bit more practice, I'm going to do one more practice problem with you. So if you want to go ahead and pause the video, you can do so here and attempt this problem on your own, or you can do it along with me. All right, so welcome back. If you're checking your work, let's go ahead and solve this together. So a couple things to notice is we do not have common denominators. So that's going to be the first thing that we're going to work on, is finding our common denominator. So to do that, I'm just going to create a table of multiples. Now you may already know what the least common multiple is, but we're going to create a table just for extra practice. So I'm going to start by counting by eighths. 16, 24, 32. I'm just going to go down 4 digits. And now I'm going to count by sixes. 6, 12, 18, and 24. So there is my least common multiple, and I'm going to use that for my common denominator. All right, so let's go ahead and set up our problem using 24 as our denominator. All right, so the next step we want to do is we want to make these equivalent fractions. So I can use my chart up here, and I notice that 8 went 3 times. So I know that I'm going to be multiplying 8 times 3 to get 24. What I do to the denominator, I am going to do to the numerator. So 5 times 3 is going to equal 15. All right, then I'm going to take my 5, 6 that I noticed that on that one I actually went a little farther. So I went 4 times on that one. So we're going to take 6 times 4 is 24. Therefore, 5 times 4 is going to be 20. I can go ahead and bring over my whole numbers, 3 and 1. Now I do notice that you cannot subtract 15 minus 20. So we are going to have to ungroup for this problem. So let's take a look at this. In order to do that, we're going to borrow or ungroup the 3. It's going to become a 2 and technically plus 1. So I still have 2 plus 1 here. But I need to change the 1 into a fraction that I can add so I can get an improper fraction. So I want to use 24 as my denominator. So I'm going to say that 1 is the same thing as 24 out of 24. So that is going to be the fraction that's equal to 1 that I'm going to add here. So 24 out of 24. All right, so now we're going to add 15 plus 24. Now you might be able to do that in your head, but just to make sure, I like to write it out, make sure I get that correct. So 15 plus 24, 5 plus 4 is going to be 9, 1 plus 2 is going to be 3. So we are going to have a new numerator of 39, and the denominator is going to stay 24. Now I'm going to simply bring over this set of mixed numbers because it's going to stay the same. Now I'm ready to subtract, but I don't want to forget my 2. Gotta bring my 2 over here, kind of squeeze it in there for us, okay? All right, now we're ready to subtract, finally. All right, so I look at my whole numbers. 2 minus 1 is 1. And the nice thing is I can actually subtract these without rewriting it, but you could rewrite it if you like, just to make sure 20 minus, or 39 minus 20, so 9 minus 0 is going to stay 9, and 3 minus 2 is going to be 1. So my new numerator is going to be 19 out of 24. So my final answer for this problem is going to be 1 and 19 out of 24.